Hey everyone, and welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Camilla, and today I want to take a look at 3 different games from Ravensburger, all within the Minecraft IP. So we're going to be looking at Minecraft Heroes of the Village, Minecraft Portal Dash, and Minecraft Builders and Biomes. Now this isn't going to be a complete review of each of these games, as I have reviewed them already, but a comparison of the 3, looking at which one is right for you, some pros, some cons, and ultimately giving you my personal ranking of these 3 games. So with that in mind, let's get started. First up, I want to take a look at Builders and Biomes. Now this one came out back in 2019, so it is the oldest one on the list here, and it currently has an expansion. Up front, I have not played that expansion. I'm happy to play it, I just haven't felt the need to go out and build upon this game, because ultimately I really like it a lot, and it hits the table over and over again in my family. It is the most complicated of the 3, and in that I don't mean in the rules, I mean in the strategy and the actual gameplay. It is definitely the Euro of the 3. During this one, you're going to score at 3 different times in the game with 3 different scoring reasons or 3 different scoring mechanisms at that time. One point you're doing building types, and another time you're doing land types. And so you have to really strategize through that, not just what you're doing now, but in the long term. So that one's kind of a neutral point for me. I will say on a positive note here that I find this one to be, of the 3, the most strategic and less luck. It doesn't have dice. I really like the fact that you can build your own weapon deck to mitigate any of that luck. So you start out with a couple potatoes, rotten potatoes I think they're called, in your weapons deck, but ultimately you can build that if that is your play style. So with that, another positive on this one is I really feel like you can choose a focus and a play style. Me personally, I like to maximize my scoring at each of those 3 opportunities. And so I'll really build upon that. I'll try to find a land type that also has the exact same building that I need to score for the next round, and such as that. I like that building kind of strategy and planning ahead. My son, on the other hand, he just wants to fight everybody. So he really maximizes playing and changing those odds in the statistics of his weapons deck, and that's his play style. This game allows for that. And I think that is a really strong positive of this game. Another positive for this game is it does provide a variant for younger or beginner games. Not only does it provide a variant, it's a really easy variant. Rather than scoring the contiguous tiles, you score each tile individually depending on the scoring for that round. And I think that this is a great variant. Again, if you want to bring down that age limit a little bit, or gaming experience a little bit for our younger players or our newer players, but it's so easy to incorporate at the same time. This one is about 50-50 if we still use it when we're scoring, kind of depending on my son's mood. One drawback to this one, though, and I will dock it a little bit, is it is the longest of the 3. Again, I think that does lead more towards that Euro style game and mechanisms that are included in this, but sometimes it does overstay its welcome just a little bit on our table. Definitely been a couple games where my son's doing laps around the table by the end, but he still wants to finish, and that's a positive. So with this, who is this one for? I think this Builders and Biomes specifically is for people and families that enjoy this theme but prefer strategy and depth, where they want to be able to explore different strategies and ultimately build their own character as they try different ways. You know, do they build their character to fight? Do they build their character up to really be good at using the blocks and things like that? So if you prefer, you have a player who really enjoys that aspect, this one is right for you. Next up, we have Heroes of the Village. This one was released in 2022, so just a year old at the time that I'm making this video here. And this one, as a positive, I'll start off right off the gate, is a family or kids game. I definitely think it leans more towards that kids realm than it does family. It is definitely scales younger. It is a cooperative one as well, as opposed to Builders and Biomes, which is the only competitive of these 3. But this one is that cooperative nature where where you're all playing together to try to complete these piglin tasks and ultimately take down the big boss at the end. So it kind of has a boss battler feel of sorts. I really think that what makes this a good kids game is it has very limited actions that you can do on your turn, but they're all very straightforward effects. So it gives you that option of having a couple different things you can do, but you know what you're going for. And it has very straightforward effects. Oh, I need to get a block. Oh, I need to upgrade my character. I do this action to do that. So it's very straightforward. That being said, a negative on this one, it is the only game of these three that doesn't have a player aid. And so for me, that is a bit of a drawback when you're aiming towards this younger crowd, kind of going ahead and giving them that player aid where they can go down and check off exactly what's happening and understand this round structure, I think is a pretty big miss on this game of the three specifically. With that, I'll flip that over to a positive. The iconography on the player aid is fantastic. When you get your animal companion and you put that on, it has it listed on it exactly what that special ability is. So while you might have to remind them a little bit of the play structure, actually their actions available on the player board is phenomenal. It's really, really well done. It's really clean, and I like that they kind of build their own reference sheet based on the character they have made for that game. So that's a huge positive to me. Another one positive here, speaking of those animal companions, I do like that you do build your own character, that you get your special ability. Let's say you're really connected to Steve and that's who you usually play in the video game. You can be Steve, but you can also make him a fighter by having a wolf, or you can make him I'm not sure, I don't remember all the different special abilities, but you can give them that one that explores really easy, or that mines really easy, and it kind of breaks the rules and it makes them feel really specialized and individual. And for a kid's game, I feel like that's hard to do. With being able to provide them those opportunities to feel immersed in the game without increasing that overhead of rules is really uniquely done in this game, specifically the Heroes of the Village, and I think that is a huge positive for it. One last negative on this game is I do think that it is limited in the scope of age and interest. I think the interest in Minecraft is going to go beyond this game, and it kind of caps out a little bit, I think, at about age 10. At about age 10, they're going to be looking for a little bit more as they kind of go through the different games and they increase in their interest level. So that's why I can't quite recommend this one as a family game, but as a kid's game, it is fantastic. So ultimately, who do I think this is for? I think this game is for younger families. If you have a younger gamer and they are okay playing independently, or they seek those opportunities to play independently. So if you have two kids, for example, maybe one's a little older, your older kid could run this game independently with a younger sibling, or with a friend, or whatever the situation may be, some cousins, anything like that. So I think that this is, if you have younger families that you're playing together in a family game night, and you want to kind of include everybody, it's that IP that's going to reach the older ones, it's a simple gameplay for the younger ones where they're making their own decisions, or your kids want to play independently, then I think this one is right for you, and that's Minecraft Heroes of the Village. And last up here, we have Minecraft Portal Dash. This is the newest entry here by Ravensburger game. Although it still came out in 2022, it was a little bit after the Heroes of the Village. So this is Portal Dash. It's going to be another cooperative game, but this one's more complex, and I'm going to give it a positive for that one. I think it has a little bit more depth to the decision making, and you really have to balance as the game goes. If you completely ignore the piglin task, you're going to lose, and pretty quickly, because you really see that block getting smaller and smaller. That being said, I love that decision space of when do you pull blocks and what do you pull them for. So kind of the multi-use aspect of this, where you have to balance using those blocks for different things. You can't let the bad guys get away and kind of overrun the board. You can't completely ignore the piglin task, but you also have to upgrade yourself, or else you're not going to be strong enough by the time you get to that boss monster. And so for that, this is another cooperative but more complex than what we saw in the Heroes of the Village, and I think that's a really positive thing. I kind of alluded to this a second ago, but another positive to this is the decision making of how to use the cubes. This is so key in this game because, like I said, you cannot win this game by not doing the piglin task. That is a losing condition, right? That is how you time out the game. So you can't ignore that. But ultimately, you have to balance your character and make sure that you have the items available and are refreshing them as you need in order to complete tasks and move across the board at a good pace, or else you're just going to time out of the game. So you really have to manage that decision space in this and make sure that you're talking cooperatively in order to be successful in this game. And that's a huge positive for me. I also really liked the different visuals there are to show you that pace of the game. I liked, and from the little simple things that you roll the dice at the beginning of your turn in order to bring out the monsters and spawn the monsters and get rid of the different blocks. So kind of again, set the pace of that game. So I like that you use the dice for that. But then you turn around and put them on your actual player board to visually show your two actions. In so many of these games that we try to bring to younger kids or kind of developing gamers, they don't have that visual, that tactile nature. They need that, right? They need that visual representation of I have two actions. I did one action, I did my second action, done. You know, especially if you have to go back and take backs and that kind of stuff, to have that right in front of them and that tactile nature attached to it is so key and important in this, and it does it really well. As well as a game that has a set time like this, you know, you have to finish task 1 by the time that top layer of the block is out. I love that they can see that. You know, it's not a ticking clock, and they do have some options that influence that, you know, that they're influencing that actual clock, but they're seeing it, oh, only 3 blocks left. I really need this power, but I can't because we've got to finish this task. And so the fact that they see that but can also manipulate that clock, I think is fantastic and very, very well done in this. A little bit of a negative to me, I do find the monsters to be a bit fiddly. This is perhaps just in my play group, but I feel like that whole queue is really fun because you can see what's coming up. But ultimately, I would have liked if these were just in a cup and you're drawing them out randomly, because I feel like trying to manage that queue and keep it on your table and pushed forward just kind of detracts from the game. There kind of almost seems like cleanup every time you put on or take off a monster off the board. You kind of have to shuffle that, you know, move everybody up and manage that queue. I find that detracts from the game and ultimately becomes a little bit fiddly. But I think the last positive I wanted to mention here is, while in this one, as opposed to Heroes of the Village, you don't start with power, a special animal companion or anything like that. You're all symmetrical. I like that you have the opportunity to specialize and upgrade. You can talk about that. You can be like, hey, I think I'm going to go over here and get an item so that I can really be our fighter, or I can really be our mover. I don't have a ranged weapon. I think I'm going to pick up one of these bows, because looking at what's coming up, we have 3 ranged enemies coming out. I'm going to go ahead and pick up this bow. So it gives you that chance to talk strategy and really figure out how each of you are going to specialize, and gives you the growth to play within the spectrum of the kind of character that you're comfortable with, but also come together and make sure that you're balanced as a group and a party. And I think that leads to some really interesting cooperative moments, and for that, it's an absolute positive. So who is this game for? I think this game is going to be, again, for families who are fans of the IP, but are looking for a more decision space. So if you are someone that really prefers like Marvel United, where you like that combined action and that real cooperative play, but want this Minecraft IP, this is going to be for you. So with all that, I want to take a look at these 3 games and give you my ranking of them. Again, I'm not going to rate them. I have already given them ranks. And with that, spoiler alert, they are all Dice Tower Seal of Approval or Dice Tower Seal of Excellence. I like all 3 of these games a lot. But I ultimately came down to my personal enjoyment. I think if you asked my son, he would give a different ranking, as well as Joey would give a different ranking, because not only are our play styles different, our situations are different. Joey's daughter definitely likes Hero of the Village more than the other ones, which is number 3 for me. Heroes of the Village is number 3 for me out of these. It's just not hitting the table as much. Me, about halfway through, I get kind of antsy. It's right there with my son's play style, but we both are kind of ready for it to end by the end. So I think that had we got into this when he was younger, this would be higher for him. But for me, it's just not going to hit the table as much. We want a little bit more. But number 2 is going to be the other cooperative game, and that's going to be Portal Dash. I think Portal Dash and Builders and Biomes, I went back and forth on these two in the numbers. If you asked my son, he would put Portal Dash higher because he likes that cooperative play. Me, I have Builders and Biomes higher at number 1 because I want that deeper strategy and I like that competitive feel of it. So the Portal Dash, I think that this is a fantastic game. I think it really pushes that cooperation aspect. But I want to see the fruits of my own strategy. And ultimately for that, Builders and Biomes is number 1 so that I can really focus on that strategy, or after a couple plays, try different strategies and see what works. And I love that the game offers me that kind of wide spectrum of strategy to explore and implement as well. So for me, my number 3, Heroes of the Village, number 2, Portal Dash, and number 1 of my favorite of these 3 Ravensburger games is Builders and Biomes. And there you have it. That's my thoughts, my pros, my cons, and ultimately my ranking of these 3 Ravensburger Minecraft games. What are your thoughts? Which ones have you played? Which ones are you looking to get your hands on? What have become your personal favorites and see hitting the table over and over again in your family? Let me know in the comments down below, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I've been Camilla here on the Dice Tower.